Have you ever had one of those days or maybe weeks where you just feel like you're getting by, just surviving? And then other times when you feel totally on top of your game, like you're truly thriving? Well, it turns out that very human experience might be connected to a fundamental pattern that shows up in a place you would never expect: mathematical biology. Yeah, I know it sounds a little out there, but stick with me. This is going to be fascinating.
So, to really get into this, I want to start with a question that gets right to the heart of how we experience our lives day in and day out.
It's a simple question, right? But the answer tells you so much. It's really the difference between feeling drained and feeling energized, between feeling stuck and feeling like you're actually growing. So let's break down what these two states really look like. On one side, you've got survival mode. You know this feeling. It's when you're just trying to get through the day, living moment to moment. And there's often this underlying current of stress or distress. But on the other side, you've got thriving. This is where you feel productive, you feel resilient, and you're experiencing real positive growth. The key thing to get here is that thriving isn't just about not having problems, it's the presence of something so much bigger.
And this idea of thriving, well, it's not just a nice feeling. It has a scientific name: flourishing. The field of positive psychology has actually spent years digging into this, trying to define and measure what it truly means to live an optimal life.
So according to the researchers, what is flourishing? It's when you're experiencing positive emotions, positive psychological functioning, and positive social functioning, and you're doing it most of the time. It's the whole package: how you feel, how you think, and how you connect with the world around you. And what's really, really interesting is what the opposite of flourishing is. It's not necessarily depression or some diagnosed illness. No, it's a state called languishing. That's the feeling of being stuck in neutral, where life just feels a bit hollow, a bit empty. It's that survival mode we were just talking about. Now, here's why all this matters so much. A huge, groundbreaking study found that only about 18.1% of American adults are truly flourishing. Let that sink in. That means more than 80% of us are either languishing or just sort of in the middle. So this isn't some fringe issue. For most people, it's the default experience. This whole dynamic, languishing versus flourishing, it's not just something happening inside our heads. It plays out in the big, complex systems we're all a part of every single day. And there is no better example of that than the workplace. It can either be this incredible engine for growth or a massive barrier. So what makes the difference? This quote from a recent survey just nails it. Thriving at work is a two-way street. It takes us as individuals to show up and take initiative, for sure, but it also absolutely requires organizations to build an environment where that's even possible. You just can't have one without the other. Research from Simmons University actually identified the key ingredients that help us thrive. First up, supportive leadership that actually empowers you. Next, a sense of self-determination, having some control over your own work. And third, real, actual opportunities to learn, develop, and grow your career. And on the flip side, what gets in the way? Well, the study found that the biggest hurdles are poor communication and a lack of transparency, managers who cause problems, general chaos and uncertainty in the organization, and even our own internal stuff like self-doubt. So whether it's inside ourselves or in the workplace, we keep seeing these two distinct states. One where we're flourishing, we're resilient, we're growing, and one where we're languishing, feeling vulnerable and just trying to get by. It feels so fundamentally human, doesn't it? But what if this pattern isn't just about us? What if it's a universal law of nature, something you could actually describe with math? Okay, now we're about to take a pretty sharp turn into a field you probably weren't expecting: mathematical biology. But trust me on this, this is where things get really, really cool. So picture this. You've got researchers using these complex models to figure out how populations grow over time. Think like fish in a lake or bacteria in a petri dish, especially when the environment is random and unpredictable. They weren't looking for some deep meaning of life, but they ended up stumbling onto a hidden rule about how pretty much all complex systems work. The whole key was this one variable they called R, the uniform structural growth rate. Now, in simple terms, you can think of R as the system's internal engine. It's the underlying potential for growth that pushes the whole thing forward. The big question they had was, for any given system, what kind of R is even possible? And what they found was kind of mind-blowing. Under the right conditions, a system can have not one, but two totally separate, stable, positive growth rates. But then, if you just tweak those conditions a tiny bit, Suddenly, poof, no stable growth is possible at all. The whole potential for growth just vanishes.
This incredible discovery reveals this fundamental split, this duality, where a system can have two totally distinct paths it can take. The researchers gave it a name, the two branches of growth.
And you can see it so clearly here. For a whole range of environmental conditions, there are two possible solutions for that growth rate R. There's a high-performance upper branch, and then there's a much more fragile lower branch. A population or a system can exist on either one of them.
So what's the difference between them? Well, the upper branch is a state with a high growth rate. It's robust, it's resilient to shocks. The lower branch, though, that's got a much lower growth rate. It's a vulnerable state, super sensitive to any random changes in the environment. Does that sound a little familiar?
Because that mathematical upper branch, that robust, resilient, high-growth state, it's a perfect analog for what psychologists call human flourishing. It's that state where we are at our best, where we can handle challenges and just keep on growing.
And that lower branch, the fragile, low-growth state that's sensitive to every little thing, is a pretty stunning mathematical mirror of human languishing. It's that feeling of just surviving, where any tiny problem feels like it could knock you completely off course.
So what does this all mean? It means this deep pattern of having two distinct states of being, one resilient and one vulnerable. It's not just a feeling. It's a fundamental property of complex systems that shows up in the math of population biology and in the psychology of our own minds. It seems that whether we're talking about an ecosystem or a company or our own personal well-being, we're all governed by these two branches. We can exist in a state of fragile survival or one of resilient growth. So I guess the ultimate question is, what does it take for us to make the jump to that higher branch?